Hello guys and girls, how's it going? Screezilla here, and I hope you're all well. And, well, I've finally got my grubby little mitts on a Foch. The AMX 50 Foch. A prototype tank that was built by the French. This was a prototype built on the M4, the AMX M4 chassis. It was actually built on the M4 chassis, one of the prototype M4s. It was designed to have a 120mm gun and be a heavy anti-tank vehicle, basically similar to that of the Jagdtiger and the Ferdinand, that sort of idea of a tank destroyer, you know, pretty much a mobile bunker. It was designed to be much faster than those vehicles and a bit more agile, so capable of getting to a few more locations. And to do that, they skimped on some of the armour, mainly the top and the side armour. The front armour on this thing is absolutely glorious when it works. I'll get to that in a bit. The gun handling on this vehicle is pretty decent. You have got a very decent shell, a big old 120mm armor-piercing solid shot shell, which travels at 1,067 meters per second. The velocity of this gun is ridiculous. On top, you've got a, I think it's a 13mm MG, which is decent enough. Just a slightly larger caliber than that of the 50 cal in respect. It kind of handles similar to that of the BT-13, the Russian anti-tank truck. It sort of has that feeling to it, and it's relatively good. It's got a very low ammunition rate though, so it does take a while for it to reload. As you can see, the gun itself, you've got a very narrow aiming point, so it is very easy to aim at distance, which does make life a lot easier for long shots. This thing is a really good sniper, but also it can be used as a very good brawler. We'll just hop outside quickly, because this frontal armor section is very, very strong. You've got, I think it's 300mm of effective armor all across here, almost 200mm of effective armor around this section here. It is very, very strong indeed. Now let's go through a little bit of history on this. So the AMX 50 Foch was a prototype heavy tank destroyer with the 120mm self-propelled gun. Basically, it was just a self-propelled gun. The Cannon Automaire AMX 50 Foch, named after Ferdinand Foch, a military general from back when there was the Franco-Prussian Wars, in fact. He was fighting way back then in 1870, 1880, I think it is, off the top of my head. You know, a long time ago. He was fighting way back when. Sort of in the 1870s and 1880s, he was fighting, and, you know, sort of post-Napoleon sort of French armour era type thing. He... bit of a polarising view for World War One. I believe he was a very talented general, and he did perform some great deeds. Of course, as I said, it is polarising, and some people will absolutely say it's not necessarily his skill. He just got lucky many times. But he was compared to the likes of Napoleon, even Caesar, with his ability by some people. He was considered one of the best strategic minds of the First World War. But as I said, there was a lot of different views of that one, and I'm not going to get into all the details on that, but he was a very important man. So the vehicle being named after him was a very big deal. The vehicle was pretty much scrapped after the prototype was built, because the AMX 50 was going to get the 120mm gun on it anyway. Now we have an M46 here, so we're just going to wait for it to come across, take a shot, go straight through it, take out its engine, gunner, and... sorry, its engine, loader and commander. I think we also took out the horizontal drive there. I'm just going to pause this for 1 second and switch to the free camera here. Now, you see where the shot went? Now this is relatively close range as well. You would kind of think that a 120mm shell going through the side of this vehicle would probably cause a bit more damage. We blew off a track as well on the opposite side with that shell. You can sort of see how strong that shell is for the concussive force there. We've gone straight through the tank, basically, and I hate these free camera controls so much. We've gone straight through the tank and out the other side. That's how strong this shot is. But that's the issue with this shot, is it just goes straight through the tank and through the other side. This guy's messed up the gym. So, you know, this shell has just gone through here and then out over here, and the shrapneling effect has not really done anything. The only reason these two guys got knocked out is because the shell passed through his leg and through his leg. But there's no real spalling effect, there's no real shrapneling effect, and that does cause a lot of problems for this shell. It really does affect it. I'll go a bit more in depth into that in a moment, but we'll just continue on here. So the Foch was, as I say, abandoned because of the heavy tank that came in, the AMX 50 with the 120mm gun. So second shot there, we get much better fragmentation and actually do the damage that time round. So we're just going to move around a little bit. Now, this game is not a super high-end, massive killing game. This is just a bit of a demo of the vehicle. It's probably the best game I've had today with it. Not saying much there. I've seen some people take this into action and absolutely go wild with it. One game I was playing earlier, some guy got 10 kills with it because he was just driving it like a light tank, flying it around, just keeping the front onto people, and nobody could really do much about it. That's where this tank excels, is it's really good at taking things frontally because of that ridiculous armour. Now, as I said, the Foch project was abandoned after the prototype was built, really, and it really didn't do much more, unfortunately, which is kind of a shame because it was an interesting vehicle, and it sure as heck could have been something special. Now, the Foch doesn't have an autoloader. It's just a standard loading system. You can see there's the cradle for the second round here, so just load it up, reach, load the next one up, and it does give it a relatively good reload time in theory. Practically though, the reload's not that great on it. For the 120mm, it's not that bad firing, but it does feel kind of slow sometimes. There's a Conway over there, so we're just keeping an eye on it, but I can't see it through the trees, so I'm just trying to get a shot on target in a minute. Finally spot it. It's going through the trees, and again I just can't get that clear shot on there, and just trying to wait for it to pop out the street there. But somebody else takes it out before he pops out, so I don't get a chance. The Yag Tiger manages to take it out. So how is the AMX 50 Foch? Well, it's not as good as I expected. I've really been having a hard time to enjoy this tank. The gun is pretty epic when it works, but the problem is the solid shells don't work very well. And there's a medium tank up there. I can see the shots firing out. I can't really see it at the moment. You can sort of see where it is with the name tag, but of course in realistic battle we don't get name tags, so I can't see it very well at this moment. I've been having a lot of problems with this gun basically, and not performing very well, and I've also been getting penetrated a lot from the front. Now, this section up here is a bit of a weak spot, but I've been getting penetrated through the front armour in some really weird places that shells shouldn't go through, so I'm just wondering if it is a little bit buggy at the moment. You know, it's still new, it's still technically in testing, really. Now I spot the M46 up there, so we turn the gun, turn the tank, get on shot, fire around, we go straight through his turret, into the turret section, we kill the loader, the gunner and the commander, take out his breach, but that's all. And that's the kind of thing I've been having all day with this tank, is the shells have been very hit and miss, and you know, you sort of fire off a shot into the turret of an enemy tank and you won't do more than just taking out the turret crew, which can be very frustrating, because you're not getting those one-hit kills that you sort of would expect with this gun. It really doesn't have the... It's almost got too much punch. It goes through the armour, and light tanks and things like that, you know, you just can't kill them. Yeah, I've actually found using the coaxial machine gun is more effective for killing a light tank than using my main gun, because you just over-penetrate everything. The shots just fly straight through a target, and because there's no explosive filler, you don't get any... The post-penetration value of the vehicle is really, really poor, and that's been a problem with pretty much all the French tanks. Now there's an STVR. I don't think I noticed him actually there. I think I missed him as he was moving. I was just trundling along and I just did not see that movement properly. Which, you know, absolutely does happen. Sometimes when you're watching a replay you just sort of don't realise these things quite as much. Now, definitely see him now. He's appears to be in a tree, apparently. So I'm just moving around, getting in position, trying to get the gun on target, fire off a round, and we get the instant kill with that one, because the turret crew are in the turret. There's only 4 people in that tank and 3 of them in a turret. If you had a machine gunner, it wouldn't have been an instant kill again. It would have been, you know, another one of those one-hit no kills, you know, just having to take a second shot. And as I said, the reload's not terrible, but it's not the best. I know in some other games this tank does get an autoloader, and, well, looking for historical documents, I can't really tell. The big thing is the Subsea has got the autoloader, so you would think, being that this is the same gun, it would also have that autoloader, being that it also would have room for it in the cast turret. So I'm not too sure why it doesn't get that autoloading feature, but with how they've dealt with autoloaders, they're not that effective anyway, so it's not really a big issue. You know, at least you can actually get the loading time down with your loaders in this respect. The vehicle is an okay vehicle all in all, but it's not as good as you hope, I would say. Sometimes it can be really fun, but the side armor and a lot of problems do cause these things a lot of issues. Now we're just going to end the replay here because game's over, nothing more happens here. We win pretty easily. I think I ended up finishing 4th. Pretty good little win there. You know, not a bad game. Not a great game, but not a bad game all in all. It shows off the gun in some forms. We'll just head back to the garage here. Now, as I was saying, from the front this thing looks impenetrable. You've got 180mm armour with pretty much an effective thickness of somewhere, you know, between 300 and 290mm. The lower plate is pretty much impervious. You know, this thing from the front, it's pretty beastly. This section here, you will die if it penetrates. Because what happens is you get penetrated there with a... Because pretty much everything has an explosive filler, it goes in there and takes out all of these guys without any problem. The little turret here tends to be not too bad, but again, it does tend to get penetrated very easily. So those are really big weak spots, and as you can see I have got foliage covering them just to try and help diffuse it so people can't aim for it too easily. The gun breach, pretty strong. But again, you will have shots just going through here. I've been shot here a number of times, mainly by tigers, and penetrated with real ease. And you just sort of think, well, how does that go through on that sloped armour? Surely that should deflect the shot. The other biggest issue I've had with this tank is actually the tracks. So at this angle here, I've had people shoot my track, and the shell has slid along the whole track and then penetrated around about here. And it's just, it gets caught between the track and the hull, and it just slides the shell into the tank. And I think I've died about 6 or 7 times because of that. It just, yeah, really weird physics sometimes. Again, you would think that this little mudguard here would actually affect a fuse. But yeah, it really acts very odd with this tank. As I said, the crew, you've got a 4-man crew, pretty well spaced out. As I said, I from technical documents I've seen, it said it was going to have an auto-loading system, but then others it said it wasn't. The actual prototype they made did not have an autoloader, so I guess that's what they're using. But being that it is the same gun as the Sebesay, which does have that auto-loading system, and as you can see, it's a sort of similar setup with the cradle. You sort of have to scratch your head and be like, well, surely it should be an autoloader. Yeah, it doesn't. It feels like it should be an autoloader. But yeah, as I say, it's just very hard because there's really not much documentation on this vehicle because it was just a prototype that was cancelled very early on. Much like the Lorraine Combat de l'Assault, the Lorraine CA. You know, very similar vehicles in all honesty. You know, there's not really a huge amount of detail on them for interesting facts. As I said, the biggest problem I've had with this is the gun just being too much penetration. From the front, this thing can be an absolute beast though. So yeah, it's not a bad vehicle, and if you play it well, you will have some fun in it. It can be absolutely monstrous if hull down. Sorry, my neighbours decided to rev up their engines. It can be absolutely monstrous hull down because of this frontal armour. You know, you can absolutely take so many shots and bounce them. But at 7.3, you do start facing heat, and heat will just go straight through the armour as well. So again, it sort of depends what you're facing. And as I said, sometimes this armour just seems not to work. It just bugs out for some reason. Just before we go, I'm just going to take you to the test drive track and just show you quickly just the gun in action, just in a live action sense. So we will fire off. We'll fire at the Panzer IV there, and we'll just aim for the turret. There we go. And this is the biggest problem. As you can see, it's a lightly armoured vehicle, and with that shot, we've gone straight through the vehicle, straight through the turret, and there's not really much fragmentation damage, when, in all honesty, if this 120mm shell hit a tank, you know, when a shell's moving that fast and it hits the armour, it is going to cause some post-penetration fragmentation. There we go, that was a little bit off hitting the cupola there, but again, you sort of see the problem with this ammo. It just doesn't work very well from a side shot perspective or light armour perspectives. You sort of just have the shell just going straight through and really not causing much damage. Of course, if you hit the ammo of a tank, like we'll do with that Panther, not a problem. But if you don't, you're going to have issues. Yeah, it just, as I said, it just feels like this tank should perform so much better with its penetration, and it really doesn't. Sometimes you'll be hitting things and just going, Well, surely that should have gone through, or that should have done more damage. The reload is not terrible, as I said. As you can see here, the reload is not bad at all. And the actual, let's just switch to the machine gun here. If we just spin around here, we'll just try and get on target. You've got about 40mm of penetration with this gun. As you can see, it doesn't carry much ammunition, unfortunately, so that really is problematic with it. But it has got good velocity, so it is decent at taking out aircraft or light vehicles. You can absolutely take out a light vehicle without too much issue with this gun. You know, even at range, you still have good penetration values. So again, it does work quite well. We'll just return to the hangar now. But it's just a bit of a disappointment. As I said, it just doesn't feel as strong as you hope it would. Sorry, it's 15mm machine gun, not a 13mm, sorry. So that 15mm machine gun is relatively good, and it has got good penetrative value. So you can take out a few things with that. The actual ammunition, as I said, it does just feel like it over-penetrates way too much. And yeah, it's just a bit of a disappointment, as I said. It just feels a bit... The tank feels a little bit off, so to say. When it works damn well. But when it's not working, this thing is just a pig to play. Alright guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope you found it somewhat useful. I will be back to you again soon. I'm actually going to be doing the AMX 30 next, which I have finally unlocked. So that will be next up on the video list, I reckon. Yeah, we got some things to say about that as well. Okay guys, have a lovely day and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.